Good morning. It's Megan with To the Table Homestead. Today we're just going to check on the farm, see what's going on, the garden, our animals. So let's go take a look. This weekend we spent, well, my husband and I spent about, I don't know, at least 10 or 15 man hours weeding the garden. We've mentioned before that we don't use any pesticides or anything like that on our garden, and we don't use any herbicides, so we don't kill our weeds with anything like Roundup, which is actually a antibiotic, so it's really bad for our guts. And so we have to hand pick all of our weeds. So let's take a look at what we've done. So we've got all the weeds out. We've got some basil back here. Here's my boys. There's Caden and Grayton in the back. So we've still got some basil growing here. And then this is just some of the basil that we planted in the spring had just dropped seeds. So we've still got some basil here as well. And then our okra is still producing. You can see our pods up there. So they'll be ready to clip again in a couple days.
Mom,
yeah.
Don't get me to kill them. I can't reach them.
No, they're too tall for you. They're actually above my head as well. So they're probably, these okra plants are a good 6 foot tall now, I think. Maybe even more. So we got all this weeded, and I had to replant our beets. So these 2 rows here are beets, and they're coming up slowly. You can see them here. But we've had some chickens getting in the garden. You can see how they're bitten off here. So see these little sprouts coming up, and the chickens then that have gotten in the garden have been pecking off at them. But hopefully they'll be okay. They'll continue to produce leaves and they'll continue to grow. And so you can see them if you look really close. They're coming up. And then this row is beets as well. But like I said, I had to fill in after we weeded. I filled in the spots that had were empty. Nothing either nothing came up or something just completely took them out. So here's the little beets that are coming up. We use a type of beet called cylindria, and they're like long cylinder beets, and they are good for Florida, this area of Florida, and they grow really well here. So let's. Yeah, we will in just a second. And then these 2 next rows here that you see, these greens, this row here and this row here, these are all turnips. And I also had to replant some of these as well. These are coming out very good though. So if you live in zone 8B, turnips are a great thing to grow. They grow pretty easily, so you don't have to do much to them. The greens are great to eat, and the turnips as well are the little roots that grow up underneath. So these are doing really good. Let's go look over here at Grayton. He wants to show you guys the beets that we've got coming up.
Those are beets. Those are radishes.
I mean radishes, excuse me. So we've got these beautiful little radishes. Not many people in my family like these, but I do. I put them on a salad. I make a salad with the arugula that you see behind Grayton, and I cut up 1 or 2 radishes on there. But you can see the chickens have been getting in here as well, pecking off these radishes. So I think when we harvest our meat birds, we're going to harvest a couple of our little escapee chickens. So this beautiful greenery here is arugula. This is another great thing to grow. It is a bitter, if you've ever tasted it. It's a lot of Europeans love arugula. They put it on like arugula pizza, like a margarita pizza with arugula.
Doesn't sound very good.
But I just pick a couple of these greens, and the way that you pick these is just like lettuce. You take them from the outside of the plant. So if you see this plant here, you take the outside leaves, and then the inside will continue to produce. So you can just pick these off like that. But the arugula is coming up great. It is a bitter. Bitters are very good for digestion, so that's a great thing. But the reason I say that is because the chickens don't really care for it. They don't really eat it, and they don't really take it. So it grows well. I wonder if all of our crops would look like this. if the chickens weren't in the garden. So the other night also, we had a rabbit that was in the garden. I'm assuming he was getting some of these carrots. So these two beds here, this one here and this one here, are all carrots, and you can see where they're at now. There's some spare spots, so bare spots that we'll need to maybe fill in. Yes, they're not very big. Show me what the carrot looks like now. Yeah, we got a little while to go on the carrot. We got our asparagus back here. The asparagus kind of quits producing around this time of year. When it gets cold in a couple months, this will all die back, and we will cut everything down to the ground, and it will just pop back up in the spring. We weeded this area, or I did, this bed here, and this bed here. You can see the little green sprouts coming up. Those are onions. Those are onions. And so those will stay in the ground for a long time. We won't harvest those until August of next year. So onions stay in the ground for a long time. Maybe July, August, something like that. So everything's looking much better. We covered this area with the silage tarp. This is where we had taken our sweet potatoes up. The reason we put the silage tarp over it is because we do not want to be picking weeds all winter, and it will kill anything that tries to grow up under there. Hey, pretty girls. Here's Roost. Say hey, Roost. Hey, Lucy. Here's Lucy and Stella. This is Crooked Beak.
No, that's not Crooked
Oh,
Beak.
are you sure?
That's Fluffy.
No. Oh, there's Crooked Beak back there. Yep, you're right.
I know my chickens.
I know you do. Are they eating some of that arugula? Yeah, Grayton's feeding them some arugula. So I guess they do like it if they are hungry for it.
Roost really likes the root.
Yeah. Hey, Roost. He's such a handsome boy. Hey, Lucy. Hey, Lucy. That's Lucy. Stella's back there. Then this area, if you saw one of our last videos, you remembered that this area looked like one big weed. It was full of weeds, but we finally got it pulled up. There's like nothing left now. It was all green, but it was mostly weeds. But if you look close, we've got collards coming up. So here's our collards coming up. Yep. And that is actually bok choy right there. So I must have planted here after I planted in the tunnel. That's bok choy. Bok choy is like a Chinese cabbage. Then we've got our mustard coming up. The mustard's coming up really well. So again, if you live in Florida, there's a couple things that will come up easily. Mustard, turnip greens, arugula, radishes. If you're starting to plant a garden and you want to try it, those are some easy things that will come up. You don't have to baby them. Then over here we've got some kale coming up. You can see where the chickens have nipped off the plants.
Ding, 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 ding.
There too is leaves as well. But they're coming up. Don't pull them off anymore. Then the chickens have already done. Okay. But then we've got, oh yeah, we got a little roll of kale here. And then we do have finally some broccoli coming up this year. It looks just like the collards and the kale. They're all brassicas, so they all look the same once they sprout. They just have these big kind of waxy leaf looking things. But this is actually broccoli. Broccoli, kale, cauliflower, collards, those are all brassicas. They live they're in the brassica family, so they all look the same when they're sprouting. And here's some cauliflower. They're teeny tiny, but they're coming up. Maybe they'll make it. Probably need to throw some fertilizer on them because broccoli and cauliflower are very heavy feeders. So this tunnel, we did not get to this part weeding, so I'll have to spend this week weeding this part. This is what the whole area that we just looked at looked like before we weeded it. There's just weeds everywhere. We should have probably covered this area with a silage tarp after the chickens were done. But you can see, if you know what to look for, which I do now. When I first started this a couple years ago, I had no clue what was a weed and what was not a weed. But this right here, that's Swiss chard growing, coming up. Let's see here. There's some more Swiss chard right there, a little red. It's in the same family as beets, so they look exactly the same on the top when they're coming up. And then I planted lettuce over here, but the chickens have pretty much ruined that. They came in here and dust bathed. If you're not familiar with chickens, dust bathing means that they are like digging. They like make these huge holes that they cover themselves in the sand with. We do have a little bit of lettuce coming up though. This is called Mizuna lettuce, and then these are little little pieces of lettuce. That is not, that's a weed. That is a little piece of lettuce there. Here's little pieces of lettuces as well. If the chickens will leave them alone, they may thrive. We'll see what happens.
You need to put a cage around it.
Yeah. Originally,